Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, reform is in the air. The candidates for governor are talking about it. A grand jury has issued a report on it, and guess what? Tim Potts is here to talk about it. And then, are we ever going to fix the financing of Pennsylvania's transportation infrastructure? We have some ideas for you. Pennsylvania Newsmakers, guess what? In depth, in detail, that's our politics and our government, and it all starts right now.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, Pennsylvania's leading reformer, Tim Potts, who heads Democracy Rising, is here. And I'll tell you, Tim, you've been on this show. You've been all over the state talking about reform, about ethics and campaign financing and constitutional conventions and initiative and all those things that, how long have you been doing this? 4 years now?
6 years now.
6 years, how fast time flies.
Yeah.
But listen, all of a sudden, out of the blue, a couple of weeks ago comes this reform commission, or actually a grand jury that's doing all these presentments that led to the indictments of a bunch of legislators, ex-legislators and staffers, saying what? The same thing you've been saying for 6 years.
Right.
Talk about the grand jury recommendations on reform.
Well, they are broad and sweeping and actually go far beyond anything that we had recommended. Like the #1 recommendation, go back to a part-time legislature and cut their salaries.
Now, I've actually said that.
You've said that.
I've said that.
But, you know,
go ahead.
Most of the integrity advocates haven't gone that far.
Yeah.
And, but probably the most disturbing thing was what the grand jury found in terms of the overstaffing of the House of Representatives.
Yeah.
You know, we're looking at a real budget problem this year, like last year. And according to the grand jury report, you can save $50 million right off the top by getting rid of staff who are not necessary for legislative business. That's stunning. Yeah. And you throw in the $180 million surplus that the legislator is sitting on, and you've got close to $250 million.
Yeah. Now, we have, what, something like 3,000 staffers, and it's the largest staff of any legislature.
Yes.
Do I got that? And the most cost per capita. Do I have that right?
Absolutely.
See, I remember what you write. I'm paying attention to what you write. Go ahead.
Thank you. And the largest percentage of the budget of any legislature.
Now, they also did something else that a lot of reformers have talked about, and that is a genuine need to take a holistic look at state government, which translates into the magic double C words. Go ahead.
Yes, Constitution Convention. The grand jury found that the legislature is irretrievably broken, that's their term, and utterly incapable of reforming itself. Again, a direct quote from the grand jury. And we've been advocating that since our beginning. We have understood, primarily because of my experience within the legislature for 7 years, that this is a place that's not going to fix itself. And they've had ample opportunity. You know, it's been 3 years since the bonus scandal investigation started. And they've done nothing to prevent it from happening again. Next month, we'll have 5 years since the pay raise. They've done nothing to prevent that from happening again.
Yeah, one of the things that, I think what happens is we get a lot of good people who run for the legislature for the right reasons.
Yes.
And once they get into the legislature, the culture sort of gets a hold of them. And all of a sudden, 3,000 people serving their needs, staffers, 1,000 lobbyists or more, all of a sudden, you know, it's a pretty nice system, pretty nice deal. And even though a lot of them work hard, I was sort of stunned a year ago, not last year, a year ago, before the 101-day late budget, the year before that. I counted, and I think between July and December, the legislature was in session together, both houses, for 9 days.
Yeah.
In other words, they act often like a part-time legislature, which is why some people believe if it looks like it's part-time and it acts like it's part-time, maybe it should be part-time.
Oh, yeah. It's a real question, and it's something that I think will be a focus of debate at a Constitution Convention. We just have to get there. And, of course, the problem is that the legislature itself has to authorize the referendum for citizens to finally get to a Constitution Convention.
Yeah, now explain this. I've written about it, and you've written about it. In order to get a constitutional convention, what are the steps that have to be taken?
Well, the first thing is the legislature has to put the question on the ballot.
So the
And
people can't do this.
people cannot do this. In Pennsylvania, there is no legal mechanism by which citizens can petition to get their government to do anything. You know, other states have the right of initiative. Other states have automatic questions on Constitution Convention. There are 4 states this year, including Maryland, that have the question on the ballot. The legislature can't stop it. It just automatically goes there. We could do the same.
We're going to go to break. When we come back, I want to go over some of the things that I think they could easily do that wouldn't affect their elections at all. It's not about re-election, and even if, let's say they stay full-time, let's say we drop that off the table and they stay full-time, there are some things that they could do, and I want to go over them and get your reaction to them when we return.
Sure.
All right, reform, it's in the air. At least we're hearing an awful lot about it. The gubernatorial candidates are talking about it. A lot of people seem somewhat serious about it, but not much response out of the legislature. We'll be back with Tim Potts following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, welcome back. Tim Potts is with me. We're talking about government reform. All right, let's start with some basic things that wouldn't interfere with their elections at all. We'd still have 98% re-election rates most of the time. Now, we haven't had those quite recently. All right. Campaign finance reform. Go ahead. We have no limits. Explain what
Right. We're one of a handful of states that has no limits whatsoever on the amount of a campaign contribution an individual can give to an individual public office holder.
And what do we see with one candidate running for governor this year?
Right. You have 3 people putting up $1.5 million and making an instant candidate out of somebody.
And let's not pick on Tony Williams' campaign supporters, because in the past, many people have given large sums of money.
Oh, absolutely.
And in all candor, there's nothing illegal. These people did nothing wrong, nothing illegal. Am I right?
Absolutely right.
They did what the law said. But the point is, the law should be changed so that we restrict the influence. And we could have the folks on from Pennsylvania for modern court, where we've got the Philadelphia trial bar giving how much to judicial campaigns? Almost $1 million.
Right. Right. Yeah, the influence of money on elections is getting worse instead of better, and it's not in the public interest.
All right, let's talk about a gift ban. Congress has a gift ban, which means, I forget what it is, $25 or something like that, or some limit on what anyone can give, lobbyists can give to lawmakers. In our state, you have to report a gift, but
you don't have to report the first $250 of gifts, and you don't have to report the first $650 worth of entertainment and meals and gratuities.
That's true, but the point is, you can give larger gifts.
Oh yeah,
correct.
Then you have to report them.
That's fine.
Whatever.
But why not a ban?
Yeah.
I would rather see that you could give somebody $100, because I don't think anybody's going to get bribed for $100 or go take somebody out to a dinner. I don't object to that. But what about trips? What about sizable gifts? Why not ban those altogether? Does that make any sense at all?
Well, of course it does, and it's something that has enormous popular support. You know, this part of the problem that we have with all of these integrity issues is that the people want it, and the legislature refuses to give it to us.
See, what I don't understand, why would a gift ban and limits on contributions affect incumbent re-election rates?
Yeah, I can't figure that one out
I don't think they do at all.
No, it affects their quality of life when they're in Harrisburg.
Well, that's true. That's true. All right, let's go to the last one I want to mention, and maybe you have some others. Let's talk about who does the ethics. If there's an ethics complaint, it's handled internally. There's no external review of some serious problems that legislators can get themselves into. And look what we've just had. 26 lawmakers, ex-lawmakers, and staffers under various forms of public corruption charges, correct?
Right.
Why no ethics strengthened ethics regulations. I think the Senate has done. Go ahead.
Yeah, ethics doesn't belong in either the House or the Senate. It belongs in an independent agency. I mean, this stuff has been going on in those two chambers for decades, and you have not seen either chamber discipline any member for any of this wrongdoing.
Now, I know I'm going to let you, I want to thank you for coming. I'm going to let you go. But here's the bigger point that I want to make. These reforms are popular. The voters want it. They've consistently supported it. The people who we elect are good people by and large. We don't beaten up on them needlessly. We think they go to Harrisburg to do the right thing, and this culture and lifestyle just gets morally corrupting, and a lot of good people can't just change it.
Yeah, one of the interesting recommendations from the grand jury was that every member of the legislature be guaranteed a certain level of staffing and funding so that they can conduct their operations. I mean, we talked about how being in Harrisburg can be very nice. It can also be very nasty. And the leadership has no reservations about really nailing people who disagree with them, and that includes taking away district offices and staff. That should not be permitted.
You're absolutely right. All right, there you have it. Tim Potts, Pennsylvania's leading reformer, is here explaining some of the grand jury recommendations. And now I'll tell you what, Pennsylvania's infrastructure remains not arguably one of the 2 or 3 most important problems confronting the state. We think there are some solutions that we're going to put on the table, or some guests are going to put on the table, following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, here we go again. 6,000 bridges in a state of structurally deficient. 7,000 miles of roads. If you've been on them, you know I don't have to. You don't need an expert to tell us they're in poor condition. Alison Black from the American Road and Transportation Builders Association is with us, and of course Bob Latham, one of our regulars from the Associated Pennsylvania Constructors, to bring us up to date. All right, Bob, let's go through the numbers on the problem first.
Okay. Since I was here last, Terry, the State Transportation Advisory Committee has come out with an updated study of transportation needs. Remember, we were always talking about the Reform Commission from several years ago, but the TAC now says, the Advisory Committee says, $3.5 billion problem. That's for highways, transit, and local governments. That's a big number, obviously, but that not only repairs those structurally deficient bridges you talked about, but also moves the Commonwealth forward with added capacity and addressing congestion, both with highway and transit solutions. Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, and I don't get this. Everybody understands we have to address this problem. We cannot, the economy is too dependent, given our situation as a transportation centerpiece between New England, the South, and the West, the gateway. I don't get it, why we can't work this out. Well, first of all, we have to get past some of the conventional wisdom that we've had on this issue. We keep hearing, well, we got to wait and see what Washington's going to do with transportation. They're mired in gridlock. We can't wait for what we can't wait. How about the quick fixes? How about the quick fixes? Like, we're going to tax gasoline again, and now we got this new gateway tolling idea. It's to fund that level of transportation improvements, again, all modes, it's going to take a number of different solutions. I mean, we are, in the short term, looking at some sort of fuel tax or adjustment, either oil company franchise tax. We have the lowest driver licensing and registration fees in the country. And we're going to have to look at other things like the $500 million that go to the state police out of the transportation fund. That's 9 cents of the gas tax. All right. Now, Alison, you're an economist by training, and you have a report which says, and here's what our politicians understand: economic impact, jobs of doing this. Talk about that reform report and why talk to the people of the state, but to our legislature as well. Go ahead.
Well, absolutely. Transportation construction itself is an engine of economic growth, and that's what we're showing in this study. We're taking basically some sound methodology. That was something that was very important that Bob and I talked about when we started doing this study. We're using a regional economic model from the U.S. Department of Commerce, their Bureau of Economic Analysis. So this is very straightforward information and techniques that we're using. And the bottom line is that if you increase transportation construction in Pennsylvania by about $2.5 billion, that's going to create over 50,000 jobs. So based on our estimation, that would be about a doubling of the current program right now. But those jobs are going to actually be throughout the economy.
Right, not just in transportation.
Correct. Right. About 29,000 are going to be in other sectors. So what the study does is actually trace those linkages and that, like I said, that economic ripple effect through those other 19 industries.
It's a way we can pull the Commonwealth out of the economic doldrums that we're in. We can reduce unemployment in the Commonwealth by 10% by doing this.
Yeah. Now bring me up to date on the stimulus money that was used for transportation. Give us a quick overview of that.
It's finished. It was a one.
Oh, that was quick.
Is that quick enough?
It was quick enough.
It was a one-time deal. $1 billion. PennDOT did a fantastic job getting it out the door. We paved a lot of roads. We fixed a lot of bridges, but it's gone.
Serious?
That's another.
Just $1 billion.
That's another. Well, the $14 billion came to the state. $1 billion for transportation.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Now wait a minute. But the governor's commission 4 years ago said we need $1.7 billion
per year.
Yeah, you took the words right, literally right out of my mouth. Well,
that's one of the other misnomers about this, that the stimulus was a solution.
Yeah.
It was no solution.
How do we compare? Look, I think let's run to a break, and then I want to ask Alison when we come back about how we're doing compared to other states. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. The host has no control of the show. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to Newsmakers. We're talking about the infrastructure situation, which grows worse and worse with each passing year, may I add. Alison, let's talk a little bit about how Pennsylvania compares with other states on the funding issue, something I know you've taken a look at.
Yes. Well, Pennsylvania has a very robust program. We've seen some increase in contract awards this year, which we would expect given the stimulus money. But as Bob mentioned in the earlier segment, that is just a one-time shot in the arm. So we're expecting that to carry the market in 2010, but absent some robust federal investment or some state investment, we're expecting that money to really not have much of an impact beyond this summer season.
So in other words, it essentially comes down to what Pennsylvania does. We can't expect, the reluctance now of Congress to appropriate additional money. It doesn't look like there'll be no stimulus too, and as Bob pointed out, only $1 billion of that went to road. But you pay a lot of attention to Congress. Nothing big looks like it's going to come along to help infrastructure.
Well, we know that Congress has to act before the end of the year to either extend the current surface transportation program. So we don't know whether we're looking at an extension or perhaps a reauthorization. We are certainly pushing for that at ARTBA, what we're doing. Chairman Oberstar with the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee has a bill in place, but we're still waiting for something from the Senate and the administration. So what we don't know is the timing of a bill, and we don't know how it's going to be paid for.
We're not getting any indications from our congressional delegation that they feel that anything is imminent.
That's what
we go down and talk to them, and they look at you like, well, we have no idea. The administration's not pushing.
Now we have this. I want you to the special legislation or special session dealing with transportation at the. Where does that go?
All right. Well,
Governor calls this.
Let's get optimistic here for once, okay, with this, because I think the special session is a great signal. The governor called it. He's working very hard, and he's very much engaged with the General Assembly on trying to get something done this year. The House is holding bipartisan joint transportation and policy committee hearings.
Yeah, they're traveling around the state.
Very
That's
unprecedented.
Right. Yeah.
They're getting a lot of support for where they've been. They have 2 coming up at the end of this of this coming week. And they'll be wrapping theirs up. The Senate, which was acting reluctant, is now, they've scheduled hearings of the Senate Transportation Committee. Senator Rafferty has scheduled hearings. And,
so
I believe that they actually may have an opportunity to get things done. There's a lot of support
what
for
are
it.
the 2 or 3 things, if you were to project, if you were to look a year ahead, what are the 2 or 3 most likely ways we're going to provide the funding?
Well, for members of the General Assembly that are saying we need to cut the budget, one of the things that we can do is look at the state police that is funded out of the motor license fund and remove that money and give it back to the motor license. That's $500 million, and that's a pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah.
Now, if they feel that they can cut the general, if they feel that they can cut the general fund that much, that's one way of going about it.
How about all these tolling ideas?
The Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association has come out in favor of a fuel tax increase. That's another way to go about it. So, and then we have the lowest registration fees of any state in the country, and we can take a look at that.
Third one.
And that doesn't get nearly where you need to go.
What about the tolling? Everybody keeps the tolling. Tolling, is it? Should we just drop those ideas?
I think we have to drop it until the federal government does something in reauthorization and says, you can or you cannot do it.
And then they want if you toll Route 80, you can only use it for maintenance on 80.
Right.
Now, but other states do this tolling, right?
Right. It does depend on the state, but that is certainly a viable option. A lot of that money often, though, is going back into the road
Into the immediate road.
Yeah, Terry, I think eventually tolling is what we're going to move to, because people are talking about a mileage-based tax.
Yeah.
Well, when you drive on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, you pay by the mile. What's that? That's a mileage-based fee. It's a toll.
Yeah.
So eventually we're going to go there, but I don't think that's a short-term move. I think that's something that has to be looked at in the future.
But leasing the turnpike, I mean, given
I think that's all gone.
Short-term, those aren't long-term revenue sources that are going to help your program over time. Most of those are shorter-term.
Right.
All right, short-term, final question to you. How optimistic are you that we're going to get something?
I'm very optimistic. I think that, going back to your earlier segment, I think this is an opportunity for Harrisburg, for the legislature and the governor to show that they can work together, that they can solve a problem, they can create jobs. There are going to be tough votes that have to be put up, but the signals are there, and I think that this is a way that they can prove they're not dysfunctional.
Yeah, and as we end this program, I mean, look, as I keep saying, we don't have a modern infrastructure. You can't have a modern economy, and we'll continue to have people leave the state in business and not coming here. All right, as always, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and you all stay well.